nice for a tablet for touch, but when you look at the page, if you look at it. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting for Monday, September 26, 2016. I'd ask that you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batanti?
Here.
Mr. Brado?
Here.
Mr. Capral?
Here.
Mr. Tominello?
Here.
Mr. York?
Here.
Mr. Witt? Here. Mr. Verkowski?
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting and public hearing minutes of September 12th, 2016, approval of the bills in the amount of $1,082,568.27, approval of the August 2016 revenue and expenditure report, approval to purchase discount HCMA 2017 annual park stickers to sell to our residents, approval of the Knights of Columbus annual Tootsie Roll Drive, October 7th through 9th, 2016, and to adopt the Economic Development Corporation's budget for 2016.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right. Motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members?
Just so everyone knows, in speaking with the Metro Parks, they won't have the passes available until the beginning of November. We're hoping they change their mind and let us have them sooner, but they should be in the office by the beginning of November.
All right.
Are they the same price, Mr. Witt?
And they are at the same price. They did not
Thank
increase them again this year.
Okay, good. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, item C, the closed session to discuss negotiations with AFSCME. There was a discussion that I'd had with the AFSCME leadership on a possible change to their contract, maybe a possible letter of understanding. The union met and wasn't interested in addressing it until negotiations. It was kind of I guess I perceived it as something, there was a benefit to the union, benefit to the township, kind of an offsetting thing, but in the end, there's nothing to discuss because the union isn't interested in it and there's no need to take action. So I ask that we approve the agenda with the removal of item C.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Capral to approve the regular agenda minus item C. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is announcements. The Clinton Valley Kiwanis Club is hosting a wine tasting fundraiser benefiting homeless children of Macomb County to be held Thursday, October 13th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Sicaro's Banquet Center. For more information, you can contact Anna Gloria at 586-286-3983. You have to be 21 years old to participate or attend. Harrison Township Parks and Recreation Committee is hosting Hallowpalooza on Saturday, October 15th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Tucker Park. Trunk or treating begins promptly at 6 p.m. Everyone is encouraged to wear a costume and bring treats to share. For more information, you can talk to Trustee Frank Capral at 586-466-1400, extension 1550. You can email him. There is a link on the website also. And the event is weather dependent or weather permitting. The library has several events. You can visit their website, www.htlibrary.org. And you can always call the supervisor's office or visit the website for information on these and other events. Are there any other announcements?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yep.
Just for residents who have submitted a request for absentee voter ballots, those will be going out in the mail October 4th. We just got the programming yesterday to test all the ballots, so we'll have that done and prepped and ready to go. You should see them in your mailbox by the end of that week. If you do want an absentee ballot, you can still contact the clerk's office. There's time up until the Monday before the election, so.
All right. Any other board comments?
Just a question for Mr. Capro. Do you need any help on the 15th?
Yeah, all help is welcome.
All right, good.
We have cider and donuts and things to pass out.
For the help?
So, yeah.
And corn stalks, you need some corn stalks?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If nothing else, then we'll open up the floor for public comment. We ask that anyone who might be interested in commenting, limit their comments to 5 minutes in length, and they can be about any subject.
Good evening. James Watisha, 31375 North River Road. I just got a question for Ken about the bike path. Do we know what our final numbers are that we're paying on that? I remember a few meetings ago, we had on the agenda 3 years of $50,000 a year, and it was taken off, and I just want to know what that number is, of our portion of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Meminger, 38526 Lake Shore Drive. So I just want to spend a minute here and talk about, or maybe 5 whole minutes, and talk about the, what I call it, the wetlands project that's being proposed by the DEQ, DNR, EPA group. And I have to start out by just saying very quickly, Ken, thank you for finally allowing us to get your attention, and I know you made some statements by email that you would try to do something, extend the comment period, whatever. Darren, thanks for getting it taped. Larry, thanks for getting Ken's attention, and Jim Senstock, thanks for taping it and closing down the building, all of that. Appreciate that. I was really shocked to see this project. Now, of course, this is in my backyard, living on Lakeshore Drive, and it's a concern. So, Huron Point residents, you know, please listen to what I'm saying, because this is an important thing that's going on in your backyard, especially if you're on Lakeshore Drive. The DEQ is proposing to put a half-mile long swamp, and they're calling it a wetland, but it's 60,000 cubic yards of dredging muck that's coming out of the St. Clair River, but they're not even saying where it's coming out of. They're just hopefully going to take it from the shipping channels, but they never really promised where it's coming from. They're going to dump it in our bay. Now, if you talk to your assessing department, I'm sure they'll tell you, this is your finest area. They use that on all the tax appeals, meaning your assessments are higher there. That bay is already full of weeds. If you talk to anybody that has a boat in Huron Point sub, they're going to tell you when the water was low, they had a heck of a time getting through there. The weeds would, you know, you actually would stop the motor. I mean, I had a double fountain with 502s that I had to shut them down. They'd overheat trying to get through there. Even the outboards. Even my son's little 50 horsepower outboard, you know, would get bogged up going through there, had to stop, take the engine up. We already have a wetland going back there. You know, the lake is going through an aging process. Now what the DEQ wants to do is put this 60,000 cubic yards of dredging in our bay. They're going to accelerate that aging process. And of course, we'll have a nice wetland. And I see at heart, the project is, you know, well thought through. I think they're trying to do good for the environment and everything. This lake, though, has tremendous wetlands already. I think they're trying to restore something in the past and something that was there, you know, photographs of the 60s. I don't know, they're going to put, you know, Indian reservation back there. I don't know what they're going to do. But we have a residential area here with children. I think I counted 239 children in the Lands Cruise School District. We've got, I did a calculation on the demographics. You know, I think we're going to have somewhere in the area of 70 to 80 pregnancies in that subdivision in the year. So putting a swamp right out in front of these homes is not a good idea. especially when we've got, different mosquito-borne illnesses that are going on. We've got this Zika virus right now, that's, not cured. We have, still have West Nile to deal with, and we have wetlands in back of this sub. We don't need wetlands in front. We have to wear mosquito nets to go out. This is silly to do that. The other issue is, we already have trouble with boating. I mean, we already have weeds. We're paying for weeds, to kill weeds. We're paying to dredge. We're out there. We used to get the weed cutter from St. Clair Shores and pedal that thing up and down to get rid of the weeds. So now we're gonna actually put more weeds. This doesn't make sense. So this is just a message to the board. I know, Ken, I know you're a cog in that machine. So the message is, if everybody thinks this is a great idea, I certainly would get on board. But I talked to 2 or 3 people, and really, I want to say ballistic is a good word. If you had a mortgage and you're accounting on your property value there, and you suddenly have a wetland in back of you where you used to have a nice view of the lake, I don't think that's, that's helpful to a residential neighborhood or the tax assessment or any other property valuations, none of that. So that's the message I have for you, board, and also for the Huron Point residents, please perk up. And thank you if you can get another notice sent out. I really doubt this notice went out to very many people. So I've yet to find anybody except Mr. Fox that actually got a notice. And I've talked to a lot of people, so thank you, board.
Thank you.
William Bardell, 37865 Point Rosa. It's no secret I'm a candidate for trustee on this board here. And a big thing that is going to be talked about is transparency, and why only one person from Lakeshore got a notice about this. If I look on this, you're looking at 18 acres. So if you bought a house on Shoreline and look straight out your back deck, and you're paying for water, you're now going to be looking at a swamp. And if I look at my little chart here, this goes back past the farthest point south. 18 acres is huge. This election is going to be about the residents, not special interests. It's going to be about the residents, not special interest. Do I got to say it one more time? It's about the residents. It's not about special interest. I said it 3 times, so it should stick. The farthest point out is going to be obstructed with weeds. 18 acres, that's a big, big chunk. It's going to be about transparency. It's going to be about the residents. People are talking about it. So they're going to put up this fishery, but they're still dumping human waste in the lake. In fact, they dumped, the 12 towns dumped 10.8 million gallons on September 10th. They dumped from 7:47 a.m. to 10 a.m., and I can go on and on and on. And a little known fact that residents don't realize is on your water bill, will you pay for sewage? Once it goes in that retention basin and the storms cool down, it doesn't get pumped back up down to Detroit to get processed that we're paying for. We're paying to get that processed, and it gets dumped on us. So we're creating another wetland when these people on Lakeshore bought lake property, so we're going to be planting weeds in their backyard. It's not that hard to look at the map here, the graph, and see that they're going to be having an obstruction straight out. It comes farther out. Maybe as a compromise, if it was a little bit smaller and you didn't have dredging material that came from the St. Clair River, that we know about all the chemical spills up there in Sarnia. And who's going to be checking this dredging material? The same people that checked the Flint water, that poisoned all those babies in Flint? I don't think it's a good idea to put dredging material in to make a swampland. So I think we need to take a good hard look at this and not be gung-ho on some special interest. This is our township. This is not Macomb County's township. This is for our residents, our people. We're the ones that pay taxes. We're the ones that pay twice as much for a house for half the house to live on the water. And you're putting a swampland in here with contaminated material. And the same people that are going to be checking this contaminated material are the same people that poisoned the babies in Flint. And we're going to trust them again to put 18 acres of marshland on the people on Lake Shore Drive. I don't think it's a good idea. So, again, everyone, get involved in your township. This has got to stop. And also visit SaveLakeSt. Save Lake St. Clair Facebook. We got some trolls on SaveLakeSt. that are trying to shut the website down because they don't want the 13,000 members to voice what's been going on here. Again, once the rainwater hits the retention basin and we're paying for sewage, it gets dumped. It does not get pumped vertically up down to Detroit. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Jim Senstock, 31698 San Juan. The real issue with this site is the fact that even though these people brought up this information to you guys, they're bringing it to the wrong ones. The fact of the matter is there was supposed to be a public hearing here, and it was not noticed properly to the people of Lake Shore. Period. It's that simple. They did not get notice. Now, why they didn't get notice, maybe the DNR and Corps of Engineers and whatever else didn't really want them to know about it. Who knows? Didn't really want to hear what they had to say. Who knows? But the fact is they didn't get the notice. When it was brought to the attention of the board, Mr. Verkest, and there was an offer made to at least tape it so that the people in that area could view what happened at that meeting, since there was so few in attendance because they hadn't got any notice, it was denied. And two of the board members up here actually chimed in and said they were satisfied with Ken's decision. One of them, Mr. Brado, accused me of being from the Lakeshore or Huron Point Homeowners Associations. Sorry, Mr. Brado, I live in Venice Shores. But I am concerned with what the citizens of all of Harrison Township have to say about their community. So if you're going to say something, get it right, please. The fact of the matter is, we need to have another public hearing, one that's noticed to everybody, not just a couple people, not just the people on North River Road who have absolutely no interest whatsoever in it. It needs to be noticed to all of the 700 homes in Huron Point, and probably even farther down the lake. I haven't heard that offered up yet. I think it needs to be done. I don't care what the EPA or the DEQ or anybody else has to say. This is our township. You are our supervisor, Ken. You can demand that they do it, and if they don't do it, you go to their bosses. That's what you got to do. And then you'll hear what these people have to say, because they're not happy at all. And you know what? By by, inference, they're not happy with some of the board members too. That's you. I will say this, Mr. Tominello did make attempts to get this public, or meeting publicized and at least tape recorded and available for the public. And I'd like to thank Mr. York for also indicating that it's going to be taped. It was taped. So as a result, it was taped, but the meeting was not conducive. It was not, the boardroom wasn't set up to be conducive for taping. The podium was gone, the microphones were gone, the citizens were asked to talk from the audience. If the taping that got done was successful, I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen it. But I will say this, as far as I'm concerned, there needs to be a whole new public hearing. And I don't care if it adds a little extra time. I really don't care. Or if the federal government has got a set deadline on it, oh well, then set the meeting pretty quick. Because it is something that's going to impact all of that neighborhood. Just as other projects have impacted it, the dredging in the Clinton River, et cetera, where the canals ran black and the lake ran blacker. And then let's also talk about what are they going to do? They got money to spend on this, but they don't have money to spend on stopping the sewage coming down the river. None. And in fact, they made that statement that night. Well, that's not our area of concern. We don't care about that. Well, I'm sorry, Charlie. I care about it. Take the millions of dollars you're going to spend and put it into protecting the lake as a whole and stop the sewage coming down the river. One community at a time. You take all your sewer overflows and you take all of that stuff and you get it fixed, just like Mount Clemens did. If you don't get it fixed, you don't build another house in that community. It's that simple. Federal government can do it if they want to, but nobody's demanding it, and even our elected officials aren't demanding it. They're sitting up here like bumps on a log. Get a new public hearing set up for all of those residents, Mr. Vergest. I'm asking you, I'm imploring you, those people need to hear what the people got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
My name is Floyd McDaniel. I live at 26080 Campo Lane. I've been a Harrison Township resident since 1968. I know I don't look it. But anyway, I'm curious about a couple of things that were mentioned, specifically the wetlands project. Mr. Bardell mentioned 3 times about the special interest, and I don't know what that is. Does anybody know what that is? That's a question, but I know I probably have to wait. But anyway, that's one thing. I mean, the other thing is I intend to and will run for public office here in Harrison Township. And I just wanted to introduce myself to everyone on the board because I haven't met all you guys. Some of you, but not all of you. But anyway, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Couple of issues, questions. The bike path and our share. The original scope of that grant was an 80-20 match. So whatever that final cost is, the original approval by the Board of Trustees some time ago, many years ago, would have been 20% of the cost. In the case of the bike path, we experienced certainly several delays because we had to interface with the Department of Defense along the edge of the base. That project was also originally slated in our recreation master plan or our bike path system to have bike lanes and not a bike path on North River Road. So the original idea was to increase the size of the shoulders on both I guess I'd say eastbound and westbound North River Road. Some board members here were a part of the board when the county came back and asked us, as an alternative, would we be willing to change that plan from bike lanes to a bike path? Because the county has a master plan of a 70-mile bike loop around the entire county. And one component in that path was hopefully a path that would run along the eastern edge or shoreline of Selfridge Air Base. Excuse me. So the county paid an engineering firm to do a study, make proposals, a lot of, I guess I would say, red tape. I don't think anyone's surprised by that, to the process of working with the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense ultimately said there is no obstacle or nothing preventing that path along the eastern edge, but there's some costs that have to be borne, not only to construct the path, but also to improve security. So the base would basically say you could move the fence from the shoreline in perhaps anywhere from, I suppose, 10 to 20 feet, approximately. But the project would have to include the cost of a security fence as well as a security road or drive inside. So they want physical access for vehicles. There's a number of other things. There's a couple of areas where the path would actually have to leave the Selfridge property and go out into the lake because there's a minimum setback from certain types of buildings. But either way, I know the question wasn't about that, but process was very extensive. Since that time, the cost to build this path has gone up, and the scope of work increased. And so at this point, what our share is not determined, and I'm working with the county to try to get, I suppose, as much of those funds paid for on behalf of the county's budget as possible, because the amount that we have left in the grant is limited. So the grant amount does not equal 80% of the scope of that project at this point. So at this point, we're in negotiations. The dollars were running out. We don't ultimately spend those dollars. The decision was driven by a lot of factors. Those dollars are actually an earmark, and earmarks have been gone for a long time. So there was actually a sunset to the funds. And then the federal government doesn't recognize the township, they recognize the county. So the county actually does that work. And in defense of the county, they have provided a lot of in-kind services on that project. They finished the design for that project, and they also did the construction management, which runs anywhere from 8 to 10% for each of those. So design, roughly 8 to 10% of the cost of a project, construction management, 8 to 10%. So they've assumed that cost. But the short answer to your question is at this point, we don't know what our portion is. So we're working that out. Regarding the wetlands project, and the question of special interest, I don't know, I can't answer the resident what that special interest is. I can tell you this, the Clinton River is an area of concern. Through a bi-national treaty, they identified, I believe, 40-some locations in the Great Lakes in the U.S. and in Canada. Maybe it was 39, somewhere around 40, that had areas of concern. And both governments agreed to identify what those issues were and dedicate funds over a period of time to clean those up, or basically improve them. Further, they went so far as to identify beneficial use impairments, or basically things that, beneficial uses of a waterway that are impaired. So for example, I suppose you could say, well, this river at one time held a certain species of a cold water fish, maybe a trout, but that's no longer the case. So one of the things that if that's something that might be identified, the goal is to then restore that river so that it can flow in such a way that cold water, those styles of fish might be reintroduced or returned to the water. That would be an example of a beneficial use impairment. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative was a federal project. They've spent some dollars, they've allocated some funds. In this most recent round of funding, $20 million was allocated to the Clinton River area of concern. Now keep in mind that the Clinton River watershed stretches beyond Oakland County. I think it tips into, I'm not sure the other county, but it goes Oakland County and Macomb County, and certainly not all of Macomb County. There was some discussion or some requests as to what role I play in that process. We are members of the Clinton River Watershed Council, but the Clinton River area of concern, once they knew they had dollars, they basically reconstituted their public advisory council. It's made up of folks from different universities. Some people represent communities, some represent nonprofits, and some are just citizens at large. I was asked if I wanted to participate. I thought there was real value in participating in that organization or in that public advisory council. There really isn't any decision-making, but several organizations and communities submitted grant applications well in excess of $20 million. The EPA asked the public advisory to review the various projects and sort of grade them to say what they thought was the best, or the leading ones. Submitted that to the EPA, and ultimately the EPA made a decision. Two projects occurred in our township. One is the spillway, which was a wetlands restoration. There was a elimination of some invasive species, different things like that. And the other one was the Harley Ensign site. Now, originally, the applicant for the Harley Ensign site, which is this wetlands project that we've had so much discussion on, the application came from the DNR. The DNR has operated that property since it opened in the 70s. The property was originally the property of the Army Corps of Engineers, and when the Army Corps of Engineers proposed the site, they said they're going to fill it with spoils from various construction projects. And I remember as a kid, trucks every day going up and down South River, filling that up. I mean, if you look at old maps, nothing existed there. So we've extended the mouth of the river quite a bit. And then once the project was done, they said, we'll give it to the DNR. So since the 70s, the DNR has thought they owned it. But once they looked into this project, they realized that the DNR was awarded the grant. So when the DNR went through the process to accept the grant, they realized that the Army Corps never actually gave the property to the DNR. So as much as everybody operated that site thinking the DNR owned it, the DNR has not owned it. So the Army Corps then agreed to take over the grant, which delayed this project compared to the other projects in the restoration initiative. Their original scope of work was something completely different. I know I forwarded Mrs. Meminger a copy of one of the emails early on from June of 2015, where I'd said, hey, I haven't heard anything about the project, but I'd like to be involved in the design process. I was talking to one of the managers for Army Corps. He connected me with someone else. And in the email chain that I forwarded, they acknowledged the original scope of work has changed. At one time, the scope of the work was going to involve constructing a barrier island several hundred yards offshore, south and east of the mouth of the Clinton River, which on its face I like the notion of, because in essence, if you think of the site here, they were talking about constructing a barrier island here. I saw that valuable for a couple reasons, because the lakeshore bay that we're discussing doesn't really have a lot of water flow, but certainly it did at one time as a part of a freshwater delta. I saw that barrier island as having value to take some of the water from the Clinton, but also some from the North Channel, because there's a pretty strong flow of nice, cool, clean water coming from the St. Clair River, and push it through that bay, kind of, flushing it out or keeping fresh water flowing through there. That was their original scope. Part of their goal is to soften the shoreline, as the biologists have explained it, because through time we've all hardened the shorelines. Where the lake would have naturally had beaches and shorelines, we construct seawalls and change the shape of the water to suit our liking, and it's had a negative impact in some areas, and it's eliminated what they consider to be basically marshland or lowlands that are critical for water quality and for fish habitat. Again, not my words, this is what the biologists explained to me. So from June of last year till not much more than right before the meeting, I hadn't participated. They reached out to me in August and said, well, we'd like to hold a public hearing. We're getting close to completion on the design plans. I had no input, I had no knowledge. The Army Corps proceeded on this project themselves. So I said, okay, I can certainly make the meeting room available, but I'd like to see the plans myself. So they sent me a set of preliminary plans that plus or minus showed about the scope of work that they have here. I'm certainly not saying that they're a special interest in my mind. I don't go into this anticipating that the DNR, the DEQ, or the Army Corps is somehow conspiring to damage the township, but I recognize there's true value in having a public hearing and allowing for that input. When they'd asked for the meeting date, I gave them several dates. I confirmed one where the place was open. I said, okay, we'll set it up for you. We participated the Wednesday before in a meeting where we determined what they needed relative to PowerPoints and those kinds of things. This building is used from time to time as a public meeting space for a lot of different agencies. This one's no different. I apologize to the resident. We don't normally tape those kinds of things. I can't think of another time when we recorded a public hearing, and we have them for various causes or various groups. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's important to note, I also forwarded to Mrs. Meminger the email during that time, the email chain where the representative from the Army Corps said she was going to send a public notice via U.S. mail to every resident on Shoreline and along the lake's edge. And I did forward that information. When I received that from the Army Corps, I take them at their word. I believe if they say they're going to send a notice via U.S. mail, that it's going to reach everyone. So I accepted that. We know after the fact, and I didn't learn until after the fact, that not many people received that notice. At the meeting last Monday, the Army Corps stated they were hosting another public meeting. In addition to that, I've had conversations and communications with them saying that I believe that it's important, number one, that we have that another public meeting. And number two, their practice is they allow 30 days of comment from the time of a public meeting till the time they close the public comment session. They'll go through that same notification and public notice process when they go through the permit application. And Sue from the EPA explained that at Monday night's meeting. I've asked them to hold another public hearing and delay the public input period until 30 days after that meeting. I can't see the value. By their own timetable that they presented last Monday, the earliest that work will begin is the spring of 2017. Now, there are really 2 or 3 different aspects to this project, and I think some of the work was missed. There's work to be done on the interior of the site. So basically on the land component of the site, they're proposing to remove, I believe, approximately 70 poplar trees. And again, don't shoot the messenger. This is what I see in current projects. If you look at the spillway project, you'll see the same thing. The current practice, as the biologist represented, is to try to replicate what nature would typically do on a shoreline. So they're proposing to take some quantity of those poplars and anchor them along the shoreline and then fill in the area to basically soften the shoreline. I can't tell you whether that's a great idea or not. I'm not a biologist, but that's what they do. That's not just what they do in Harrison Township or on the spillway or the Clinton River. They gave us examples of this all over the place. So this is at least whatever we might say maybe the most current or the best way that the biologists see to restore shoreline. So they are proposing filling in some of the low-lying areas and making a marshland on the interior of the property. They do want to improve the shoreline in some of the plans I saw to allow for access for fishing, and they do want to soften the shoreline and create some marshland. So I know that was discussed, and that's what they've presented to me in those plans. We are not the responsible party. We didn't play a role in the noticing of the meeting. We didn't call the meeting. We provided a place for the Army Corps to present their plans. The Army Corps told me they were mailing a notice to everyone, and I think they were also running ads. Either way, they told me they were taking care of that, and clearly that didn't occur. And if we're not doing any work until the spring of 2017, I can't see how delaying the whole process for a month really affects anything, especially considering it's a year and a half behind where they thought they would be as it stands right now. So I've asked for that notice. It's worth noting that of the people that were here, Amanda was one of the ladies that works for the Army Corps. Last Friday was her last day for an extended period because she's getting married and going on a honeymoon. So I indicated again, if we have to wait for that, and they have a October 19th date for the end of the public comment, and she's not even back to work until something like October 17th. So that doesn't seem very realistic. Sue Virgilio, who represented the EPA, she works out of an office in Chicago. So this isn't just somebody coming after work one day and setting up a public hearing. It's probably gonna take a little bit of time to establish that meeting. I'll do the best that I can to try to get that notice out. There is, from my perspective, no special interest. I have no reason to believe, and at no point in this process did I have reason to believe that the Army Corps was trying to be deceptive or fraudulent. They didn't send a notice out, there was an error. They didn't ask me for input, they didn't ask me to send that notice, but now we know that. So we want to go through that process. So certainly not wishing to try to, there's no gain in here for me. It's not like the Army Corps is, slipping me $20 under the table. I agree. Everybody should be noticed, and we should have this in an open process. So I have asked for that. I also agree with the resident who said that if they're not willing to do that, then we need to move up the chain of command. I'm not ready to do that just yet, because at this point, no one's told me no. I've made a reasonable appeal to say, please redo the public notice process, hold a public hearing, and give everybody an opportunity to give input. Now, if they come back and say, no, we're not interested, well, then I think then it is time to probably talk to someone on our behalf. But I have no reason to believe that that's going to occur. I agree with the residents on just about everything there. Maybe not the notion of a special interest, I don't know who that would be, but the notion that we do want notice, and I would love to see these dollars reallocated to something that would improve water quality in another way. The fact is whether I like it or not, this process isn't, these dollars aren't to be used, they aren't for the thing that we don't like. So while we don't like combined sewer overflows, these funds are to restore wildlife habitat in the area of concern. I'm a little frustrated that, we can spend dollars on one, just like some of the residents are, but these decisions are well beyond and above you and I. So we don't have the opportunity to say, give me the $3 million and I want to go put it into expanding the George W. Kuhn facility. And I also agree. I don't necessarily agree that our dollars for sewer are being poorly spent, because we as a community are really not contributing to the overflow. But there are people upstream from us that are contributing to the combined sewer overflows. And I've lobbied at the federal and state level for solutions, and I believe it takes a combined effort, being the effort of the individual, our representatives at state and federal government, and the citizens, and the actions that they have been taking to bring pressure and attention to the project through programs such as SaveLakeSt. I think that's great. I think it's important. We have to all work together to bring this forward. No one of us can do it. So I agree with all those things, and I would rather see those dollars spent that way. Unfortunately, we don't have that option, so I think we need to work with the Army Corps to make sure that the scope of work that they propose will truly be beneficial and not damaging to our lake and to the waterfront residents. That's all I got.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there support?
Support.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.